This man is in battle with a giant dragon. He quickly defeats it, muttering to himself that he must become stronger to kill more dragons. That's the vision of the future, where he becomes extremely powerful. However, in reality, he struggles to defeat even a normal dragon, and is actually getting beaten by it. If it weren't for his petite, genius 12-year-old sister named Leo who steps in to defeat the monster, the story would have ended in the first episode. Ragna is Leo's brother, and despite her young age, she is a top dragon hunter. Whenever her brother praises her, Leo beams like a child given candy. She loves it when he pats her head after each battle. The world they live in has long been ravaged by dragons, also known as the Blood Clan. Humans have only two ways to kill dragons: either use silver weapons to freeze their blood, or expose their bodies to sunlight. Dragon hunters typically bring dragon hearts back as proof to claim rewards. After completing their mission, Ragna and Leo return to the city. Leo is currently a first-class dragon hunter, with a record of taking down 50 dragons in just 1 month. People call her the Born Silver Sword or the youngest dragon hunter with obvious envy. But to Ragna, Leo will always be his hero. During dinner, Ragna takes the opportunity to capture the moment of Leo enjoying her meal as a memento. Recording images of Leo is his happiness. As they're enjoying themselves, someone at the next table mocks Ragna, saying he's just following the prodigy Leo and taking credit for her work. It's Charluk, a dragon hunter ranked second only to Leo. He's irritated because Leo can't even remember who he is, and he turns to insult Ragna as useless deadweight. Leo coolly draws her silver sword, points it at Charluk's throat, and declares that money and fame are fleeting. What she aims for is to become the strongest in the world, surpassing all creatures. She frankly states that this path will be paved with the blood and flesh of dragons. When Leo calls for companions, no one dares raise their hand except Ragna. He doesn't hesitate to stand by the little girl's side. Leo is visibly delighted, saying this is why she chose him as her companion. Afterward, Leo invites Ragna to rest and help her bathe, making Charluk furious with jealousy. That night, while Leo sleeps soundly, Ragna continues training relentlessly to become stronger. One afternoon, while focused on his training, he suddenly sees the image of a man with piercing blue eyes, warning him that he will lose Leo. Images of the city burning like hell appear, along with scenes of Leo being pierced by hundreds of arrows, making Ragna break down in tears. Waking up in panic, he thinks it was just a nightmare, but the mysterious voice still echoes in his ears. In the days that follow, Ragna is constantly troubled by that dream. He personally cooks a nutritious dinner for Leo, which makes her immensely happy. After eating, Leo falls asleep on the chair, and Ragna gently carries her to bed. As time passes, the number of dragon hunting missions decreases. While other hunters complain about the lack of jobs and living in poverty, Ragna continues to train diligently, haunted by the image of Leo's death in his dream. One day, news arrives that dragons are heading east toward the city of Dona, a place that has been peaceful for many years. Hearing this, Leo is excited because there's a bakery she likes there, but Ragna only feels unease. Leo notices that Ragna is increasingly exhausted and grabs his hand tightly, asking if she can help. She tells him that when they first met, when Ragna was being beaten by others, she had a premonition that he would become the strongest. Leo hugs Ragna, promising to protect him until that day. Ragna recalls his tragic childhood. His parents were killed by dragons when he was 3. The relatives who adopted him also died tragically, and the rich master who bought him as a servant was also roasted by dragons. Since then, everyone believed he was cursed. It wasn't until he met Leo that he regained his faith. The girl once single-handedly slayed a dragon in front of him, making Ragna believe that Leo would never die, and he only wanted to stay by her side for as long as possible. But bad news arrives. The city of Dona has been destroyed by an army of dragons. When the mission to eliminate the dragon horde is announced, Leo immediately wants to participate, despite Charluk's warnings. Ragna turns pale, sensing trouble. When fire engulfs the city, the scene from his dream becomes reality. Ragna desperately begs Leo to flee, but she only smiles reassuringly and rushes into battle. In the sea of flames, a mysterious figure covered in blood emerges, killing all of Leo's teammates with just his blood. Ragna recognizes him as the man from his dream. When Ragna charges to attack, his silver sword immediately shatters. Ragna is thrown into the river. While Leo angrily fights, Ragna, unconscious, sees a future where Leo dies and he survives, carrying infinite hatred and training for 10 years to avenge the dragons. The blue-eyed man appears again, revealing that he is Ragna from the future, who has achieved power that makes even the Dragon King kneel, but has lost everything. He tells Ragna that such power is meaningless if there's no one left to protect. Ragna begs to be given that power to save Leo. The man simply smiles, thrusts the silver sword into Ragna's chest, transferring all his power and memories from 10 years of fighting. At that moment, the present Ragna awakens. He easily freezes hundreds of dragons with just a touch. When the 10th ranked superior dragon of the Blood Clan transforms into its true form, Ragna snaps his fingers, making it vanish in an instant. Leo calls his name in tears, while Ragna just smiles, embracing her as if living again. Deep down, he knows that the real sacrifice was made by the future Ragna, who gave everything to save this moment. That day, 6 cities of the kingdom were destroyed, but thanks to Ragna, their place was preserved. Just as they were about to rest, Charluk enters. Because their inn had burned down, they have to stay at his place. Ragna advises the group to leave the kingdom soon, because when the dragon deity has given orders, death will come quickly. Charluk curiously asks where Ragna's tremendous power comes from, but before he can answer, Ragna falls into a deep sleep, still calling Leo's name in his dreams. Leo understands that everything is thanks to Ragna's extraordinary efforts, but also realizes that he is gradually losing control of that power. At that moment, the ground shakes. The forest outside suddenly begins to move, attacking the city. Leo immediately grabs her sword and rushes out to fight, while the mysterious red-haired girl who once stood beside the future Ragna just smiles silently, waiting for him to find her. Inside a large cave, a giant fat man sits waiting for food. The servants around him bow their heads, trembling, hoping he'll be satisfied with the lamb and vegetable stir-fry just served. No one dares look up, fearing he might get angry and mukbang them. Fortunately, the fat man seems delighted, praising the dish enthusiastically for the rich flavor of the lamb and vegetables. But immediately after, his eyes turn perverse as he stares at the chef, shouting that he is the true love of his life. The fat man confidently believes he has been blessed by the gods and can swallow all the people in the cave. The 2 maids beside him couldn't escape the fate of becoming his breakfast. Meanwhile, in the city, Charluk and Leo are fighting giant trees wildly attacking the citizens. Their sword strikes cause the tree roots to freeze instantly, and they both immediately understand that the real cause of this disaster stems from the dragons. Ragna, fast asleep, is wrapped by tree roots and suspended in mid-air. He slightly opens his eyes when he senses Leo is in danger. In an instant, the power within his body erupts, causing everything around him to completely freeze. Ragna immediately senses a strange energy coming from the direction of the cave and rushes there, with Leo anxiously following. As he runs, Ragna blames himself for being too complacent, daring to sleep soundly after defeating just a few weak dragons. Upon arrival, Ragna sees the fat man about to swallow a white-haired maid alive. Without thinking, he immediately kicks the man in the face. Ragna believes he carries a curse, and the only way to break it is to eliminate all dragons without exception to protect those he cherishes. After being rescued, the white-haired maid turns around to introduce herself, but Ragna speaks first. He recites her name as Crimson, including her age, hometown, background, abilities, and even claims she is male. The team immediately tenses up, but Ragna tells everyone to lower their weapons because she is an ally, the Wing King of the Blood Clan, who helped connect the powers between present and future Ragna. Though not fully understanding everything, Crimson affirms that she wants to exterminate the dragon race, even if it means sacrificing herself. Ragna proposes cooperation, believing that if they fight together, they can achieve what they failed to in the future. He thought she would agree, but instead receives a slap to the face, as she is angry that he dared to call her a male dragon. At that moment, the giant fat man roars in anger, claiming to be the 8th-ranked dragon named Temruogtaf, and opens his mouth wide to swallow Ragna. But in the blink of an eye, Ragna throws a silver energy ball. A white light flashes, and a cold energy explosion causes Temruogtaf's body to burst into pieces, while the surrounding cave is completely frozen. Ragna, unfamiliar with his new powers, faints, while Leo watches, both admiring and fearful, as his power now far exceeds hers. When Ragna awakens, he asks Leo to help evacuate the people across the border, while he will stay behind to destroy the remaining dragons. Leo bursts into tears, saying she doesn't want to be left behind. Ragna understands, because he knows Leo has always been putting up a strong front just to stand by his side. But remembering the warning from his future self, Ragna firmly states that Leo is too weak and will die if she follows. Angered, Leo draws her sword to attack. But with a slight movement, Ragna knocks the sword away with a finger. When she regains consciousness, she finds herself being carried on his back, leaving the city, tears streaming down in despair. On the mountaintop, as Ragna silently looks down, the white-haired maid approaches and asks if he's sad, then is stunned to see tears rolling down his cheeks. Ragna doesn't answer, only saying they should continue their journey together. The maid tries to explain that if she were truly a dragon, she would have been burned by sunlight, but Ragna knows better than anyone that the dragon power within her has been sealed, in exchange for immortality. She proudly declares herself a genuine girl, but Ragna just smiles, mentioning her ability to transform shape and gender, making her blush and storm off angrily. Ragna recalls Crimson's advice from the future that she is someone who finds it hard to trust others, especially at this current point in time. Therefore, he decides to win her trust with sincerity by taking care of her attentively as he did with Leo. The maid believes Ragna is just a pervert who, having just parted ways with Leo, is now hitting on her, so she intends to refuse. But when she looks up, she finds Ragna has fainted from a high fever. In the future, Crimson once admitted that Ragna had unparalleled power, to the extent that even when she proclaimed herself the Dragon King, he could still break her head with a single blow. Nevertheless, her true form is eternal and cannot be destroyed. When Ragna wakes up by the campfire, he hasn't fully mastered his silver energy combat technique. The maid asks him about the dragon's impending destruction of the kingdom, and he replies that in the future, they had together eliminated the current Wing King. The maid pretends not to believe, but is inwardly confused because Ragna knows too much about her true identity. While he was unconscious, she examined his body and discovered that the sword had merged with his body, emanating a terrifying silver energy that could kill dragons in a single strike. She realizes that if she had Ragna in her possession, she could create an invincible dragon-slaying army. Just then, a massive flock of dragons approaches. Without much thought, Ragna hoists her onto his shoulder and rushes off. When they arrive, she says it's time for him to show his true power. Understanding her intention, Ragna jumps into the air, unleashing hundreds of silver swords that fly straight at the dragons. Each one is frozen from the inside out. The maid watches in admiration. At that moment, she exhales a green gas, transforming into a small blue creature, and commands it to devour all the dragon corpses. Afterward, she reveals her true form with flaming red hair, majestically declaring herself Crimson, the Dragon King. She agrees to cooperate with Ragna, but requires him to drink a poison vial she provides. The poison will activate if Ragna betrays her. Without hesitation, he drinks it all, ready to sacrifice everything to protect the future. Seeing his determination, Crimson decides to collaborate. She creates a throne from dragon bones and orders Ragna to use the silver sword to annihilate all 6 blood clans: the Wing Clan, Scale Clan, Fang Clan, Roar Clan, Human Clan, and Bone Clan, not leaving even a drop of blood. Ragna silently bows his head, for he had heard these words in the future and knows well that the final end of it all is the fated battle where he must confront and destroy Crimson herself. A superior dragon with wind powers is frantically slaughtering civilians. Delighting in watching the winds it creates tear and torture girls bit by bit, reveling in their writhing pain. On the other side, a group of dragon hunters are trying to fight back, but are completely powerless against the brutal dragons. When they're nearly desperate, suddenly, a military vehicle appears. Ragna charges out like a gust of wind, swinging his silver sword to slash through each dragon, while Crimson takes on the role of driving for support. From now on, they will begin a new dragon hunting journey, writing their own 2-person story. Earlier, while Ragna and Crimson were discussing cooperation, Slime suddenly transformed into human form and unleashed a stream of curses, spitting water in Ragna's face just because he dared to stand straight before its master. Thanks to future memories, Ragna appeared very friendly, which astonished Slime. He introduced himself as the #1 subordinate of Dragon King Crimson, and asserted that Ragna, being a latecomer, should call him Big Brother. Hearing this, Ragna obediently complied. But despite his submission, he was still bullied by Slime in the way old ghosts bully new ones. Seeing this, Crimson intervened, showing her annoyance. She wanted to hear Ragna's story about the future while also asking random questions about gambling games, how many dragons he could defeat, and other trivial matters. But Ragna had to admit his memory was quite hazy. He said that only when meeting Crimson did the memories begin to flood back, which made her suspicious. Ragna quickly explained that although his memories weren't complete, his power had merged with his soul. Crimson said nothing, just smiled meaningfully. She approached, pretending to be a female mage, while Ragna was the Grim Reaper nemesis of superior dragons. In this world, magic only appears in the blood of superior dragons, or a few select people. So when the hunters saw Slime constantly shifting between water and human form, they became more convinced of Crimson's claims. With her psychological manipulation skills, she made everyone chant in praise of magical power, looking no different from multi-level marketers trying to seduce naive students with promises of quick wealth. Among the crowd, a hunter named Michael stepped forward, begging them to eliminate the Wind Dragon. He recounted how the dragon had the power to blow away an entire city, causing all hunters to flee. Upon hearing this, Crimson immediately recognized it as Desaztuat, the notorious 3rd-ranked dragon. Ragna was about to rush off to hunt it, but was stopped by her. With just a light push, Crimson caused him to collapse. The reason was that Ragna's body was exhausted from straining to use the silver energy combat technique, his entire body paralyzed, needing at least 3 days to recover. Crimson's plan unfolded exactly as she wanted. Knowing that Death Reaper Ragna couldn't fight, the hunters turned to begging her to exterminate the dragon, willing to sell their weapons to pay her fee. Crimson understood they did this out of guilt, as they were foreigners who had once fled, abandoning civilians to be slaughtered by dragons. Michael confessed that he had once been proud to be a high-class dragon hunter. But when facing superior dragons, that feeling vanished, and he felt like merely small prey. He desperately pleaded for power to avenge himself. Crimson then gave him Ragna's silver sword, claiming it could destroy even superior dragons, helping them regain their honor. The next morning, she took the group of hunters to a sophisticated arsenal containing powerful magical weapons, exciting them to practice all day. Ragna took on the task of infusing silver energy into bullets. Meanwhile, Crimson wore a mysterious smile, making Ragna feel uneasy. He understood she was using him to ignite hope in the hearts of the weak, turning him into a symbol of hope. But Ragna wasn't happy about it, believing that anyone associated with a cursed person like himself would meet with misfortune. He chose to cooperate with Crimson only because she couldn't die, or if she did, he wouldn't care. Crimson understood this clearly and also knew Ragna had abandoned Leo out of fear she would be harmed. That was the deeper reason behind Ragna's determination to exterminate the entire dragon race. Knowing Ragna was anxious, Crimson proposed a bizarre solution: to drug Leo and lock her in a warehouse for protection. The suggestion was so absurd that if the FBI were there, she would likely have been arrested for lowly kidnapping. Ragna, exhausted, could only curse, while Crimson took it as a compliment. She left, declaring she would personally eliminate the Wind Prison Dragon. Before departing, she pointed out the truth that Ragna had never been cursed. It was all just an excuse for him to avoid responsibility. Just then, Slime returned, reporting that all the city's residents had died, and Desastre was still torturing women with wind. Crimson fell silent, then immediately devised an attack plan. That evening, she gave a passionate speech, declaring that today was a great day when true dragon hunters would be born, and they would destroy the Wind Prison Dragon, exposing its corpse to sunlight. Meanwhile, Desastre remained at ease, unaware of what awaited him. He laughed maniacally amidst the wind, smug about his power, not realizing the real storm was about to hit. He even welcomed everyone. Crimson announced through a loudspeaker that she had come to destroy him today. Yet he still thought he was invincible. Despite Michael having practiced many times, despite trying countless times, when directly facing the prison wind dragon, he still couldn't help but tremble. Remembering those who died at the dragon's hands, Michael shouted to encourage his teammates to continue fighting. Crimson, blood pumping, immediately stepped hard on the gas, the vehicle shooting forward like an arrow, while Desastre, in extreme anger, controlled whirlwinds to chase the car to the end. Crimson understood the danger of the vortices created by Desastre, so she drove towards the rising sun, though she also knew that sunlight wasn't the decisive card because Desastre's recovery ability was incredibly powerful. At this moment, Michael raised his gun, continuously firing at the vortex, causing the dragon's wind streams to freeze. Crimson calmly explained that everyone had mistakenly believed silver energy could freeze and solidify dragons' blood. In reality, it has the ability to solidify the magic in their blood. Therefore, when a silver energy-coated bullet touches the magic-infused wind of Desastre, it will immediately freeze. Although these shots weren't enough to stop his speed, they were the first step in Crimson's plan. Desastre, too confident in his power, underestimated the ordinary silver bullets, unaware that Crimson had replaced them with bullets fully charged with Ragna's silver energy. She ordered the entire team of hunters to concentrate their firepower, shooting towards Desastre, and when those bullets touched his wind, the entire vortex was immediately frozen. This truth stunned Desastre. He roared in rage, vowing to kill all those who dared to separate the connection between him and the wind. Crimson ordered everyone to continue firing while accelerating, luring him to chase them close to the city wall. When the vortex touched that wall, Desastre was thrown out because Ragna had covered the entire wall with silver energy, turning it into a solid counter to dragons. While he was still trying to understand what happened, Slime appeared, grabbed him, and threw him hard onto a giant spear that had been prepared in advance. 5 strong hunters simultaneously thrust spears through his heart. Desastre was held tight, his body gradually burning under the sunlight, and despite his best efforts, he could not control the wind again. But his power was still formidable, as he used the wind to tear up the ground, making the hunters stagger, then stood up with ultimate rage after being stabbed in the chest. Just as he was about to transform, Crimson drove the silver energy-coated vehicle straight into him, knocking him down, creating an opportunity for the hunters to fire simultaneously. She knew well that if Desastre had time to transform into dragon form, he could create 8 giant vortices at once, so she chose to exploit his arrogance to make him die in bitterness, burning under the sun, ended by the hands of an ordinary hunter. This whole scene made Ragna realize that Crimson was extremely intelligent and vicious. She understood dragons and how to kill them thoroughly. For her, eliminating the prison wind dragon was just a test to see how valuable Ragna was to her. Looking at the face of Desastre, who died with eyes open, Crimson smiled with satisfaction. Before leaving, she gifted the car and all the weapons to the group of hunters, then completely erased their memories of her, leaving them only remembering Death Reaper Ragna. When Michael came to thank him, Ragnar only replied that it was the achievement of the whole team, not any individual. After shaking hands in farewell, the group of hunters departed. Crimson took out a signal transmitter, opening a message from the king ordering citizens from all regions to gather at the capital for shelter, while warning them not to approach the border because it was too dangerous. After hearing this, Ragnar immediately recognized it as a trap, a plot to gather people for mass elimination. Without hesitation, he decided to head to the capital, while Crimson also wanted to change dragon hunting locations, so they agreed to proceed there together. 5 days earlier, when dragons had just reached the border, the king panicked upon hearing that the town of Donapierre had been destroyed by an army of dragons wielding thunder and lightning. The king immediately mobilized the army. A high official suddenly remembered that 20 years ago, a dragon using the power of thunder and lightning had saved the kingdom from invaders. Though confused, the king still believed that even superior dragons couldn't pass through the capital's barrier. Just as he finished speaking, the space in the palace suddenly fell silent, and the king felt something extremely strange. Then a girl like an angel appeared on the ceiling. She introduced herself as Ultimacia, the Winged Dragon King, ranked first in the Winged Dragon Blood Clan. The king was astonished that she could enter this far, while Ultimacia calmly said she understood the solar god's armor's positive energy barrier, which absorbs daylight then creates protection at night. But to her, it only made her feel hot. The king was surprised as he had never heard of Winged Dragon King Ultimacia, and she gently assured him not to worry, as she had merely stopped time for convenience of conversation. Ultimacia's true purpose was to apologize. She summoned the spear impaling her subordinate who had devastated Donapierre. The king was shocked by this polite action and words, realizing she had no intention to attack, so he lowered his guard. Ultimacia slightly bowed in thanks, then said she only regretted letting her subordinate cause people to die in pain, instead of disappearing gently as she wished. Her words confused the king, and before he could understand, Ultimacia explained that the holy gods had ordered the destruction of this country, and she was just following orders. Initially, Ultimacia had planned to quietly eliminate everyone, but as citizens fled to other countries, she had to order the superior dragons to attack all borders so no one could escape. The king, terrified, thought she had gone mad and activated the ultimate weapon. But at that moment, a treacherous courtier attacked him. A young man immediately shielded Ultimacia, and an old dragon appeared, asking for Ultimacia's reward for killing the king. But she coldly said she never wanted that. When the old dragon said he had only left the king half dead, Ultimacia reversed time, returning him to the moment before death, then apologized on behalf of her subordinate. The king was terrified, thinking she was a deity, but Ultimacia only said she was executing the will of the Lord. Finally, she reached out to the king, hoping he would cooperate so his people could die in peace. The king trembled in ultimate fear and had to accept her request. By now, the capital was overwhelmed with refugees, but the king could only resign himself to let everything unfold. Elsewhere, the one who had been impaled by Ultimacia and displayed as a sun-exposed dragon was still alive, though only a head and thunder spear remained. His aggressive, belligerent attitude hadn't cooled at all. When Ultimacia appeared to announce that in the next 10 days, the plan to destroy the entire kingdom would be executed, with all people granted a peaceful death, he immediately lunged at her, causing Ultimacia to anger and take action that left him with one eye. She said there were currently 2 major issues to resolve. First, the 9th-ranked superior dragon had been defeated by the 2nd princess, known as the Silver Energy Princess, commander of the Silver Armor Brigade. Ultimacia had immediately ordered the 5th and 6th-ranked dragons to eliminate the princess. Second, more seriously, was that Desastre of the 3rd rank along with the 8th and 10th ranked dragons had lost contact while on a population planning mission at the southern border. Initially, Ultimacia suspected this was related to the solar god religion or another blood clan, but Bogos speculated it could be a hidden danger they had never known before. The beheaded dragon laughed gleefully, showing amusement as if watching entertainment, which angered Ultimacia, who used fire to burn his smoke as punishment, as he was the one who caused all these troubles. He begged for forgiveness and promised to take the mission seriously, while also pleading with Ultimacia to return his heart. When the heart was connected, his body gradually restored to its original form, revealing his true identity as the 2nd-ranked superior dragon, Thunder-Tide Dragon Kamui. He joked, expressing his hope that Ultimacia would grant him a kiss after completing the mission. She said nothing, just gave him a fiery slap, warning that if he reoffended, she would take his head for roasting. Kamui remained frivolous, relaxed as if nothing was frightening, true to the reckless nature of someone with lightning speed. At the same time, Ragnar suddenly remembered a memory from the future. When he was beaten badly by the Blood Clan, they brought him to a vote on how to deal with him. The oldest superior dragon, who chaired the meeting, required each to state their opinion. The 12th rank suggested killing Ragnar immediately, the 11th suggested eating him alive, the The 10th proposed impaling and exposing his body in the sun. The 9th, a research enthusiast, wanted to turn Ragna into an experiment subject, while the 8th was eager to eat his brain. The 6th and 5th ranks didn't much care, while the 4th, Barrier Dragon, suggested giving Ragna a peaceful death, out of respect for Ultimatia's ideals. The 3rd ranked Desaz-Toi listened to the suggestion to kill Ragna, while the 2nd ranked Kamui remained silent. Facing all enemies before him, Ragna couldn't resist, only hoping for a peaceful death. He thought if Leo had been the survivor that day, things might have been different. But when he was ready to give up, Kamui grabbed Ragna's head, saying he knew Ragna craved death, so he would force him to continue living in hell to experience torment. Desaz-Toi tried to intervene, but Kamui ignored him. At that moment, Ultimatia appeared, coldly slicing off his head, as she hated such arrogance the most. After hearing all opinions, Ultimatia decided to spare Ragna's life and let him join the Blood Clan. When Kamui had just reattached his head and objected, he was immediately stabbed with a spear. Ultimatia recognized that Ragna's sword came from a kingdom she had destroyed, so she believed his survival was a blessing from the holy gods. Joining the Blood Clan meant becoming a dragon. The 10th ranked revealed that most people mistakenly believed middle and lower ranked dragons were evolved species, but in reality, they were just beasts born from dragon blood. Superior dragons were originally humans granted blood by the Wing King. Hearing this, Ragna became furious, realizing they were the culprits who killed Leo and countless loved ones, so he would rather die than become one of them. Ultimatia looked at him with pity, saying that once he joined the Blood Clan, all hatred would dissipate, then embraced Ragna, using a blood dagger to stab his heart to turn him into a Blood Clan member. Ragna awoke, realizing it was just a nightmare. Currently, he was with Crimson and Slime on a ship heading to the capital. Seeing him sleeping soundly, Crimson signaled Slime to keep quiet so he could rest. Ragna thought to himself that although Crimson was hateful, at least she had more humanity than Ultimatia, who wore an angelic facade to cover her crimes. He vowed to end her with his own hands. Meanwhile, Crimson pondered, unsure how much of his power Ragna had controlled, only knowing that Kamui had been sent to investigate Desaz-Toi's death. And now was the most favorable time to act. Slime was surprised watching Ragna sitting blankly, while Crimson treated him like a valuable chess piece. At the same time, Ultimatia stood high above looking down at the entire city, begging the gods for guidance. Though the god in her mind was just an indifferent child, she mourned for her fallen subordinates, believing the destruction of this kingdom would be the most magnificent funeral for them. When the ship arrived at the capital, Slime was stunned by the luxury and prosperity, while Ragna continuously vomited because the human smell was too strong. When Crimson asked, he replied it was because Leo had always been by his side before. She and Slime were both frightened by this strange endurance. Ragna affirmed that once he met Ultimatia, he would kill her without hesitation. Crimson helped him up, telling him to lean on her as if she were Leo, but he refused, saying she was half male, half female. A moment later, Crimson left to survey the terrain, instructing Ragna not to attract attention or talk to strangers. She noticed the capital's population was unusually small. Clearly someone was secretly eliminating them. Elsewhere, the old dragon inquired about Ultimatia, learning she had sneaked out to observe refugees. He became angry, scolding his student for daring to condone such action. As for Ultimatia, at that moment, she was calmly drinking wine, smiling as if nothing had happened. At a nearby tavern, a lieutenant general was enjoying himself with two beauties when Crimson appeared, making him turn pale. She struck him directly, revealing he was a subordinate she had planted to gather intelligence. Besides him, she had another special agent. Crimson gave orders to prepare, as the confrontation between Ragna and Ultimatia was about to occur, and that would be the moment to end the Winged Dragon King. Just then, in the center of the capital, the army erected a giant screen, displaying the frozen corpse of a dragon, then directed sunlight onto it for citizens to witness. The army commander declared their power sufficient to protect people from dragons, making the crowd cheer with joy. Ragna observed from afar, immediately recognizing this as the trap Ultimatia had set. Just as he thought of her, Ultimatia appeared, smiling and approaching, gently asking about his concerns as she noticed his pale face, as if he were about to faint. The conversation between Crimson and her subordinates continued in a tense atmosphere. After Gollum heard Crimson's intention to eliminate the Wing King using her trump card Ragna, he immediately objected, hastily advising that this wasn't the right time to confront Ultimatia. However, Crimson dismissed his caution, while Gollum insisted that he had personally witnessed Ultimatia take over the entire capital, during which the Wing King had used time manipulation magic. Crimson just smiled and told Gollum to relax, because the one going into battle in her place would be Ragna, whose power far exceeded both Gollum and Chimera. Nevertheless, deep down, Gollum understood that against someone who could manipulate time, even the greatest power would become meaningless. Meanwhile, the chance encounter with Ultimacia, along with new orders from Crimson, threw Ragnar into a state of confusion. His internal conflicts caused him to react slowly. When he saw the child walking beside Ultimacia, he became even more bewildered. His reason told him to kill her, but he couldn't move his limbs. He was unable to make a decision on his own. On Crimson's side, Chimera remained cold, determined to complete her assigned mission, while Golem was provoked when called a coward. He angrily retorted that Chimera was just a snake-headed, cat-tailed idiot, both stupid and weak. Chimera stubbornly insisted she was smart, not stupid. To prove this, Golem asked Chimera what 12 plus 9 equals. When he saw her struggling to answer, Golem mocked her further, making Chimera embarrassed as she tried counting on her fingers. Then even her toes weren't enough. This scene made Golem burst into laughter, while Crimson just silently observed. Finally, Crimson sternly told them to be quiet, reminding them that they were all products she had created, and if they kept insulting each other like this, it was no different than degrading themselves. Afterward, Golem used a mechanical fly to show Crimson footage he had secretly recorded, capturing Ultimacia using her time manipulation powers on the king. After watching, Crimson became angry, immediately ordering Golem to self-destruct, considering his action an insult to her intelligence. Chimera couldn't hide her joy at seeing someone she disliked being scolded by the boss, while Golem was bitter to the point of speechlessness. Crimson then pointed out that although Ultimacia's abilities were powerful, they weren't invincible. She analyzed that Ultimacia couldn't simultaneously use time freezing and time reversal spells at once. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Thunderclaw Dragon Kamui had found Michael's Hunter Association to harass them. He expressed his disappointment upon hearing he had been defeated by a weak group of hunters. He demanded they reveal who had given them the silver sword, threatening torture until death otherwise. At this time, Slime, on Ragnar's behalf, explained that he had been overwhelmed by the crowd when facing Ultimacia, which helped him stay calm. She also offered to help Ragnar, but he just nodded in gratitude out of politeness. When Slime suddenly detected a strange scent on Ultimacia and tried to get closer, the child stopped her, saying he wanted Ultimacia to help find his parents. That image stunned Ragnar. He wondered why Ultimacia would do such a thing. Ultimacia simply replied that doing good for others needed no reason. Ragnar pulled Slime away, ignoring Ultimacia's question about whether they had met before. At that moment, Nebulum appeared, sensing that Ragnar was a dragon hunter, while Ultimacia confirmed this. Nebulum made an excuse that he came to meet Ragnar because they both suffered from fear of crowds. When Ultimacia and Nebulum returned, Ragnar had disappeared. Elsewhere, reviewing the footage, Chimera realized that when Ultimacia reversed time to save the king, the surroundings remained unchanged, meaning Ultimacia's spell only reversed the wounds but didn't change reality. Crimson immediately praised Chimera for discovering this weakness. She concluded that the only way to eliminate Ultimacia was to attack suddenly, preventing her from activating the time-freezing spell, because then the reversal spell would automatically activate, forcing her to consume magic until exhausted. Crimson believed Ragnar could do this, as in the future, he had once defeated the Wing King. She ordered Golem and Chimera to prevent Nebulum and Borgias from reinforcing Ultimacia. Although Ragnar had chosen not to attack immediately, he still felt heavy internal turmoil. When he asked Slime how to contact Crimson, she gave him a phone. Ragnar asked her to relay that he had found the target, then immediately left. As for Crimson, she understood that Golem and Chimera still distrusted Ragnar because he was human. But Chimera was cleverer. She silently transmitted thoughts to control Ragnar, believing she could manipulate his mind. Just then, Slime called to report that Ragnar had betrayed them. On the other side, Ultimacia thanked Nebulum for indulging her. While he thought she was the kindest person he had ever met, Nebulum was confused, and Ultimacia was happy that he didn't know all her actions stemmed from selfishness. From afar, Ragnar witnessed everything and understood that Ultimacia was merely using the deaths of civilians to make them pass away in peaceful illusions. The reason she took that boy to find his mother was that his family would be eliminated today. The barrier Nebulum created could make humans disappear without leaving any trace. According to them, this was a peaceful death. The dragon corpse on display was just a smokescreen to deceive the public. He felt afraid in the face of such cruelty, then quickly realized that what made him uneasy was not being able to understand Ultimacia's behavior rather than fear. So, Ragnar appeared before them while Nebulum was still dazed. When Nebulum was frozen and shattered, Ultimacia immediately transformed and used time-freezing magic. But Ragnar had already charged forward and sliced her into 100 pieces. Ultimacia reversed time to recover, but Ragnar continued attacking relentlessly. Each time she used flame attacks to counter, he easily neutralized them and threw her into the air. It was then that Ultimacia was shocked to realize she had died 3 consecutive times. Ragnar declared that no matter how many times she reversed time, he would kill her to the end. A barrage of silver swords flew straight into Ultimacia, and in the final moment, Ragnar only said that the only good thing Ultimacia could do for humanity was to die. Going back to an earlier time, Ultimacia had drawn her sword, intending to stab Ragna, plotting to turn him into a member of the Blood Clan. He would change his worldview. After being pierced through the heart, Ragna felt his entire body burning. In that moment, he thought of Leo. Ragna used his remaining strength to push Ultimacia away, then lunged toward the silver sword. He intended to use that very blade to end everything, not wanting to die at the hands of his enemy. Witnessing Ragna coldly refuse all help, Ultimacia felt deeply hurt. Afterward, Ultimacia told Desaz-Toi to use wind to carry everyone away, as she didn't want to stay and witness the tragic scene. Desaz-Toi, inherently arrogant and condescending, who always enjoyed teasing women, suddenly became obedient and followed Ultimacia's orders, making everyone laugh. Just after Ultimacia's group left, Crimson's army appeared. In that moment, she was truly impressed by Ragna, who was willing to choose death rather than accept favors from enemies. A human carrying dragon blood who could still resist the temptation of that power. This is what intrigued Crimson, and she immediately ordered Gollum, who now looked more handsome than before, to carry Ragna's body back to base for resurrection. Time passed, returning to the present, where Crimson was extremely frustrated that Ragna had ruined her meticulously crafted master plan. Although the possibility of Ragna accidentally meeting Ultimacia seemed illogical, she accepted it, because her main objective was to measure his true strength. She ordered Chimera, who was standing on the rooftop, to report on the barrier's situation, and upon learning it hadn't been deployed, Crimson concluded that Nebulum was dead. She immediately sent Slime to the source of dragon blood smell, while Gollum was tasked with handling Borgias. Before leaving, Gollum mentioned he had completed what Crimson had entrusted to him, hoping they wouldn't need to use it. Meanwhile, Ragna's power was increasingly beyond control. He continuously struck Ultimacia until her body was too damaged to regenerate. Each time Ultimacia managed to recover a portion, Ragna immediately delivered a finishing blow, causing her body to crumble on the spot. All because he wanted to protect his Wing King. Elsewhere, Borgias, after absorbing all the blood of those in the palace, was about to launch an artillery attack to blow away both Ultimacia and Ragna, aiming to buy time for her recovery. But before he could act, Gollum appeared and shot his head to pieces from afar. Seeing Ragna's terrifying power, Gollum understood why Crimson had chosen him. Unexpectedly, a massive barrier appeared, trapping Ragna inside. This was Nebulum's technique, proving he wasn't dead yet. With his remaining strength, Nebulum tried to buy time for Ultimacia to recover. In her heart, a sense of gratitude arose as she watched her subordinate remain loyal until the end. To ensure smooth recovery, Ultimacia used her blood to create a giant dragon head to attack Ragna. But he wasn't afraid, continuing to fight fiercely. Nebulum devoted all his remaining life force to reinforce the barrier, but Slime suddenly appeared and swallowed his body whole. When the barrier shattered, Ultimacia had fully recovered. She intended to use time freezing, but Ragna was faster, releasing all his silver energy, penetrating through Ultimacia's magic, then throwing a punch that shattered her body. In the moment her body broke apart, Ultimacia remembered Camui's words that a Wing King like her was strong only in title but weak in essence, and the flaws in her magic would eventually be exploited. In a world where those at the highest level only need 0.1 seconds to finish an opponent, those words became reality. Ragna threw Ultimacia out of the capital, deciding to take the battle outside so he could unleash his full power without restraint. Meanwhile, Camui had advised that if Ultimacia encountered someone too powerful, she should use her trump card. Ultimacia followed his advice, immediately using the world reversal spell. Everything around Ragna reversed, time flowing back to when he was observing the army burning dragons. He found it strange, but before he could react, Ultimacia had frozen time. She was confident that now Ragna couldn't resist. Though once an enemy who killed many subordinates she cherished, Ultimacia couldn't hate him. In her heart, a puzzling emotion arose, almost like affection. Perhaps because of her natural weakness for strong men, or because Ragna reminded her of herself. However, memories of being defeated by him snapped Ultimacia back to reality. She ordered everyone to move to higher ground, preparing to execute Ragna. But at that moment, Ragna's finger slightly moved. Just that small motion terrified Ultimacia, making her back away. Nebulum, in dragon form, appeared and frantically attacked Ragna. Ultimacia hurriedly stopped him, as Nebulum's arm was decomposing from the poison emitted by slime, a solution capable of dissolving even superior dragon bodies. Despite continuous attacks, Ragna suffered no fatal damage. All of Ultimacia's defensive techniques were shattered. She gradually realized Ragna's body was like a living silver sword, possessing almost absolute magic resistance. Unable to defeat him herself, Ultimacia called on Borgias, telling him to summon the king to attack with extreme light. She turned away, hoping Ragna could pass peacefully, but the memory of the sword piercing his heart years ago awakened Ragna. He opened his eyes, declaring he had been waiting for Ultimacia for a very long time. The light in Ragna's eyes confused, then frightened Ultimacia. Ragna approached, affirming he wouldn't let Ultimacia live another second. She was stunned to realize Ragna could still move within the frozen space, something only those with her blood could do. In that moment, Ultimacia understood that, due to her failure to turn Ragna into a Blood Clan member, her blood remained in his body, putting herself in danger. Nebulum created the strongest barrier for protection, but Ragna broke through it, approaching to ask Ultimacia if she was afraid. His anger erupted, because for someone as cold-blooded as Ultimacia to still fear death, he felt contempt. Ragna drew his silver sword, launching a flurry of slashes that cut Ultimacia's body into 100 pieces. Ultimacia was forced to use time reversal, causing the time freeze to dissipate. When Ragna charged forward, Nebulum immediately embraced her tightly, but just before the blade made contact, blood gushed from Ragna's body as the accumulated wounds had exceeded their limit. He collapsed, while Nebulum took Ultimacia away, leaving Borgias to order the king to launch extreme light attacks. Crimson observed from afar, seeing Ragna lying on the ground. She wondered, in this situation, what Ultimacia would do next. Crimson understood Ultimacia's character well, that she wasn't fond of fighting, but was extremely proud and confident in her time manipulation abilities, a type of magic that could control and stop most other powers. But when confronting Ragna, being killed over and over countless times, Ultimacia now trembled in fear before her opponent's terrifying power. She couldn't comprehend how Ragna was still able to move and attack even when time was frozen, unsure if it was her own mistake or a problem with the magic structure itself. Under Nebulum and Borgias' urging, Ultimacia tried to regain her composure and was about to use her true magic, but Crimson wouldn't allow that to happen. She immediately activated a series of preset bombs throughout the capital, causing them to explode simultaneously, destroying the entire city and turning it into a living hell. People died in pain and despair right before the Wing King's eyes, all arranged by Crimson to strip away the fake moral facade that Ultimacia always wore, the shell that covered her so-called kindness and compassion. The death toll continued to rise, exactly as Crimson had planned from the beginning. She waited for the moment when Ultimacia, who always claimed to be benevolent, would be forced to make a choice to save this catastrophic situation. Just as Ultimacia was preparing to use her time reversal spell, Nebulum immediately intervened, worried that if she used it again, all the magic in her body would be depleted. When Crimson saw her plan disrupted, she ordered Chimera to take Ragna and retreat. The two then ran into a small alley and met Golem. Crimson took a bottle and stabbed him in the eye, because she remembered clearly that she had ordered him to place bombs at the clock tower and other critical points on the city wall, but didn't see any of them explode. Golem forced a smile and explained that those were places he loved, so he couldn't bear to destroy them. The answer enraged Crimson, because if casualties increased, Ultimacia would have been forced to use the world reversal spell. Golem then admitted he had actually placed the bombs, but disconnected the detonation signal because he wanted to see if after meeting Ragna, Crimson was still as cold-blooded as before. Before leaving, Crimson punished Golem by forcing him to abandon his handsome form and continue his mission of monitoring the nobles. Golem was bitter because without that form, he couldn't continue flirting with girls. On the other side of the battlefield, Nebulum held the Wing King tightly in his arms, recalling the praise of his master Borgias, who had once said that Nebulum possessed the highest Blood Clan potential. The Blood Clan transformation time was a measure of capability. Third ranks took years, second ranks took 2 days, but Nebulum completed it instantly. Borgias had asserted that his potential even surpassed Camui's. Nebulum was only disappointed that he couldn't protect the Wing King and was severely wounded. He thought if Camui had been present, perhaps the outcome would have been different. In his anger and desperation, Nebulum used all his remaining magic to activate the Blood Clan evolution process, causing the energy from his body to spread so powerfully that even Crimson could feel it. She knew Nebulum had extraordinary potential, but was still too immature to perceive the space she had created. Barrier magic was merely the lowest form of spatial magic. Sensing it was one thing, finding and breaking it was another. This space was created by Crimson during the peak of her power, a portal that could transport to anywhere in the world. An immature person like Nebulum, even if lucky enough to find this place, could never break through the solid wall she had built. Crimson decided to return to her base on the moon. At the same time, Ragnar recalled his past dragon hunting with little Leo, who once said that anything that can be hunted must be hunted to the end, never to be overlooked. Ragnar struggled to his feet, determined to return and kill Ultimacia at all costs. Though his body was exhausted and wounds accumulated, he wouldn't allow her to live even 1 second longer. Crimson advised him to rest, believing Ragnar had exceeded all her expectations, but he didn't care at all. Ragnar immediately activated his silver energy combat technique, frightening Crimson, who quickly ordered Chimera to hold him tight, fearing his immense power could destroy the entire base from within. It was thanks to this attack that Nebulum discovered the location of Crimson's hidden space. When he sensed spatial fractures and vibrations spreading everywhere, Crimson went mad, saying she wasn't afraid of strong enemies, only stupid teammates. She immediately ordered Golem to eliminate Nebulum. Though shot in half the face, Nebulum managed to call Borgias to counterattack, pushing Golem back. Chimera could no longer restrain Ragna either. Ragna challenged Nebulum with a provocative tone. The exchange between the two young fighters drove Crimson crazy, as Ragna was gradually destroying her perfect plan that she had worked so hard to create. In her fury, Crimson remembered the image of a mysterious girl who once spoke to her in male form about something called peace. Somewhere in the northeast, the Silver Energy Princess was leisurely chewing dragon meat on her sword. Two guards quickly approached, one fixing her hair, the other reporting that strangers had teleported using magic to the dungeon area. These two strangers were Crimson and Ragna. Unexpectedly, in this dangerous situation, Crimson had landed in the territory of the person she found most troublesome, the second princess of the kingdom, leader of the Silver Armor Brigade. The princess immediately ordered her subordinates to check the situation. One was irritated because the magic formation he had drawn was being used freely by two strangers. Lys observed and invited the two to come, where only a bespectacled major was waiting. She informed them that Ragna and Crimson weren't dragons, and to repay them for saving Ragna, Lys would answer all their questions. Lys immediately invited Crimson to eat dragon meat, forcing her to taste it. When she realized she had just eaten dragon meat, Crimson vomited on the spot. In Crimson's eyes, Lys was a bizarre creature. Though born without hands, her eyes could sense and control energy emanating from objects, especially silver, earning her the title Silver Energy Princess. Lys's reputation spread across the world. At 6, she had killed 3 lower dragons. At 7, she went to the battlefield and won completely. At 8, she eliminated a herd of middle-class dragons. At 9, she prevented a coup attempt. At 10, she began manufacturing weapons. At 16, she became the Supreme Commander. And most recently, she successfully killed a 9th-ranked superior dragon. Lys's ability to see through energy made Crimson wary, as it made it very difficult for her to hide her true identity. Faced with thousands of swords pointed at her, Crimson desperately called to Fu for help. The wizard calmly replied that Lys was usually a bit crazy, but once she made a decision, no one could stop her. Crimson trembled with fear, knowing well that she couldn't truly die. With her plan discovered by Lys, Crimson thought that after dying, she would resurrect and find a way to hide, waiting for a chance to escape with Ragna. Just as the Great Blade was about to strike, Ragna suddenly appeared, grabbed the Silver Energy Sword and threw it aside. He didn't understand what was happening, but sensed this was the consequence of Crimson's karma. The Major was confused seeing Master Garm curled up on the ground, while Princess Lys suddenly collapsed. She pointed at Ragna, saying he was a sword that grew hands. In Lys's eyes, Ragna appeared as a silver sword with arms and legs. When the soldiers saw the princess faint, they rushed to attack Ragna, who easily knocked them all away. Lys couldn't believe there was someone in the world who could completely merge with a silver sword. The governess Nasa, who had served the princess since childhood, knew the princess was obsessed with crafting silver swords but had no interest in marriage. Seeing Lys not bothering to think about finding a husband, Nasa was frustrated because according to their contract, she would receive a huge payment if the princess got married. Therefore, Nasa knelt down begging Lys to have mercy and quickly marry someone so she could change her life. Lys just laughed, feeling sorry for the servant who was a slave to capitalism, then said her type wasn't necessarily a domineering CEO. Just a handsome man who captivated her was enough. Now, seeing Lys's enraptured expression when looking at Ragna, Nasa was almost shocked. In Lys's eyes, Ragna was someone with perfectly trained limbs, dense scars only making his muscles more attractive, and the silver energy power within him convinced her he was the strongest, most handsome, and most magnificent person she had ever met. The Major hurriedly reminded the princess to stay calm because Ragna was also an enemy, but Crimson could only stare blankly at Lys's unusual reaction. Ragna now bowed seriously, speaking stiffly like a machine, exactly as Crimson had instructed him earlier. The Major agreed to temporarily spare them both and throw them in prison. In the cell, Crimson pushed Ragna's head down, demanding to know why he dared to act without informing her first. She was angry because his reckless action had destroyed important Earth space, with the fate of her 2 subordinates unknown. When she asked how Ragna intended to compensate, he honestly replied he would offer his head as an apology. Mentioning subordinates reminded Ragna of slime. Crimson took a small piece still left on Ragna, cut her hair for it to eat, and slime was summoned, though much weaker than before. Currently, the group was at the northern training area, in the underground base of the Silver Armor Brigade. Crimson took this opportunity to explain the brigade's chaotic situation, believing that after hearing it, Ragna would no longer want to go to the capital. The Silver Armor Brigade had brought over 1,500 civilians here to seek refuge. Fu worried this would cause riots as they were difficult to control, while the Major demanded to keep the matter of Ragna and Crimson secret, understanding that they couldn't confront them now. Just then, 2 swordmasters ran up, reporting they had found Garm sitting crying in the middle of the road. Garm, once renowned as the first swordsman who had cut off a superior dragon's hand and defeated a 9th-ranked dragon, had now fallen before Ragna. The swordsman was extremely excited that someone had defeated Garm, while the major tried to make them maintain order, but no one would listen. 2 head archers also rushed in to ask questions, having heard rumors that the princess had fallen in love. Fu stood watching the chaos, only able to sigh helplessly. Meanwhile, Lise was still dazedly admiring Ragna, infuriating Nasa, who rushed over and slapped her twice in succession. Before Lise could react, Nasa continued, forcing her to acknowledge her feelings. Though slightly resentful at being hit, Lise also sensed her governess's joy upon learning she had finally fallen in love. Thanks to her talent for weapon making, leadership abilities, and capacity to see through people's hearts, Lise had transformed this disorganized group into a powerful army ready to obey her. Nasa didn't forbid the princess from loving, only reminded her that before dreaming about romance, she must fulfill her responsibilities. Hearing this, Lise gave Nasa a bullet for daring to dump all responsibility on her, but also admitted that Nasa's words, after all, weren't wrong at all. The Silver Armor Brigade had called an emergency meeting, as the current situation was suspiciously quiet. The entire forest was enveloped in an unusual peace, with dragons remaining stationary, showing no signs of attack. Even when approaching the forest, they remained still as if they didn't exist. Lise, always sharp in grasping situations, thought that perhaps something serious was happening among the superior dragons, forcing them to postpone hostilities. She determined this was a rare, favorable opportunity, and immediately ordered Wizard Majorca to complete the teleportation formation today. Majorca, who idolized Lise to the point of infatuation, became nervous and trembling with emotion just from talking with her. While Lise was passionately speaking, Ragna and Crimson suddenly appeared. Ragna's presence made Lise completely lose composure, her face flushing, eyes becoming awkward, and movements clumsy. She had to try hard to pretend nothing was wrong, but his presence made it difficult for her to hide her emotions. The warriors in the brigade, after learning this was the person who defeated Swordmaster Graham and had made their leader submit, all wanted to test their strength against him. Ragna clearly sensed their spirit, recognizing they were elite warriors, with some possibly as strong as or stronger than Leo. Crimson quickly joined the discussion, proposing cooperation with the brigade. She had already understood that Lise intended to use dragon blood to activate magic for the teleportation formation. Though she judged Lise's plan as wise, Crimson still believed it would fail because the power gap between the two sides was too great. She offered that if they agreed to ally, she would provide valuable information about top warriors, including Ragna. Upon hearing Ragna's name, Lise became so flustered that Nasa had to hit her head to bring her back to reality. The princess immediately shouted, flatly refusing the cooperation proposal, even setting up a large wooden board to hide her face from Ragna. Then she immediately drew her sword, asking the brigade leader if they should deal with these two on the spot. But Ragna calmly pulled away the wooden board and spoke up, making Lise blush again. Crimson took the opportunity to reveal that 2 superior dragons were heading toward them, including the Crazy Passion Dragon, a 6th-ranked dragon serving as strategist. She was famous for her ability to compound medicines, capable of creating a poison that causes any creature it touches to die instantly, with only sunlight or silver energy able to neutralize it. What made her most dangerous was her ability to use that drug on her own dragon brigade, making her army stronger and fiercer. Hearing this, the entire Silver Armor Brigade was terrified, as this was the first time they had received such detailed information about superior dragons. However, Lise remained cautious, not easily believing Crimson's words. She suggested that Lise could use her ability to see energy for verification, but unfortunately, Crimson's body odor was so terrible that Lise couldn't concentrate. With no other option, Crimson had to let Ragna persuade the princess himself. Meanwhile, Crimson continued to reveal that the number of dragons preparing to attack reached 10,000, including 9,000 lower-ranked dragons, 1,000 middle-ranked dragons, and 50 mature dragons. They were transported by giant screaming tree shadows and commanded by 2 superior dragons, beings capable of wiping out the entire Silver Armor Brigade along with over 1,500 civilians in an instant. Hearing this, Crimson looked at Ragna, advising him to cooperate, in return for which she would fully support the brigade. Amid everyone's silence, Ragna suddenly spoke up. He affirmed that he agreed with Lise that Crimson was indeed hateful, but still believed in her burning passion for dragon hunting. Ragna frankly declared he agreed to cooperate, not for emotional reasons, but for the common goal of eliminating all dragons. He told the princess to use him as a tool, as he was the strongest dragon hunter still alive in this world. Lisa's face hardened as she heard this, trying to maintain a serious expression, while Majorca anxiously interrupted, advising her not to trust the words of such a pervert. Nevertheless, Lise nodded in agreement, saying it was only for strategy and not because Ragna moved her. Witnessing this scene, Crimson burst into laughter, making Lise even more embarrassed. Finally, the princess turned to ask about why the dragons remained silent. Crimson calmly revealed it was because she and Ragna had a fierce battle with the Wing King in the capital. Meanwhile, far away, Ultimacia was furious upon discovering she had lost her ability to manipulate time. Kamui returned, bringing the head of Hunter Michael, and saying the man had voluntarily let him in rather than being forced. When Kamui presented Michael's sword, Ultimacia immediately recognized it as Ragna's weapon, though crude but containing powerful silver energy. In her rage, Ultimacia sliced Kamui in half, but he immediately regenerated, bursting into laughter. He said that Ultimacia had lost in her own mind, because magic exists based on 3 factors: magical power, technique, and belief. When belief collapses, power dissipates. Kamui advised Ultimacia to fill her fear with rage, like when she swung her sword at him. Then, in a gentle but powerful voice, he confessed that he loved her, loved a crazy woman full of survival instinct. He advised her to be honest with her feelings and express what she truly desired. As tears fell, Ultimacia ordered him to bring back Ragna's head, believing all mistakes originated from humans. Kamui embraced her tightly, accepting the order, then crushed the silver sword in his hand before leaving to fulfill his mission. A moment later, Ultimacia regained her composure, approaching to embrace a comrade, concerned for the person she thought had been threatened by Kamui, but who actually was the one who asked for his intervention. As for Kamui, recalling Michael's dying words that the Grim Reaper would come to take his head, he just smiled with excitement. Though they had never met face to face, he knew for certain that Ragna was the only opponent strong enough to compete with him, whom he considered the destiny of the upcoming life or death battle. Lys ordered Ragna to channel silver energy into the sword for observation, then asked Yak to test cut it. With just one strike, the great sword created by Lys was cut in half. Lys asked in amazement how long this state could be maintained, and Ragna humbly replied that with a sword bestowed by the princess, he could maintain it for quite a while. Hearing this, Lys nodded, thinking it reasonable, then signaled for Isak and Nasa to stop. The two realized the princess had discovered how to bring out Ragna's full power and were very happy. Unexpectedly, just seconds later, she revealed her true form as a boy-crazy simp, then asked Ragna to channel silver energy into the Silver Armor Brigade's weapons. From there, a sword duel between Ragna and the Brigade's warriors took place. He only had to seize the silver sword and channel silver energy into it. Crimson had previously instructed him to keep half for himself and give the other half to the Brigade. This time she didn't want him to use silver energy combat technique anymore, because it was too dangerous in a life or death battle. However, Ragna didn't understand why the training duel became so intense, with the others fighting as if they wanted to kill him for real. Perhaps it was because their beautiful leader had been captivated by him. The soldiers' eyes all focused on him, making Ragna annoyed, deciding to end the fight quickly and return to his room to rest. At this point, Shin tossed Ragna a knife, asking for a fair one-on-one duel. But within seconds, Shin was defeated. Ragna evaluated this opponent as quite good, possibly even stronger than Leo. Shin was frustrated because despite being called strong, he had lost so shamefully, and ran away crying. Wizard Majorca watched the scene, just shaking his head in disappointment. Graham understood Shin's feelings, so he also ran to cry alongside him, while Chris, the head knight, laughed loudly, mocking them both for crying after losing. However, he was lucky enough to have Ragna help craft a prosthetic arm with new power, sufficient to fight even superior dragons. Chris and Shin both thought Ragna was a natural genius, but Graham disagreed. He believed that power came from persistent hard training, feeling that Ragna's true age might be greater than his appearance suggested. This made Graham feel lazy compared to him. Moreover, the princess seemed to have fallen for Ragna, making him even more sorrowful. Meanwhile, Shin, despite his failure, refused to give up, resolutely standing up to challenge Ragna until he won. He couldn't accept being defeated by the protagonist like that, but even after trying 7 times, he was still easily beaten. At the same time, twin sisters came to ask Ragna's impression of Lys. They had knives ready to threaten that if his answer wasn't satisfactory, they would attack immediately. Ragna only said he always wrapped bandages around his face, so Lys probably thought he was very handsome. He even joked that if he removed the bandages, perhaps the princess would be so shocked she'd remain single for life. Hearing this, the twin sisters laughed at Ragna's naive cuteness, then showed him their weapons, 2 long-range revolvers that allowed silver energy to be channeled into them. Looking at them, Ragna inadvertently remembered Leo at home. While he was still thinking, Slime suddenly appeared, having smelled dragon meat. The twin sisters were delighted to see the cute little creature. Slime introduced himself as the evil demon Slime, but immediately afterward teased the two that their faces and teeth looked just like dragons. The sisters immediately changed color, and the atmosphere became heavy. They invited Slime to come along for some girl talk, and he naively followed, not knowing this might be the last time he could enjoy himself like that. The twin sisters took Slime to a dark room and revealed their true nature. They recounted that from a young age they had no parents and were enslaved in a circus. Both originally didn't know how to feel anger, but wanted to learn that emotion to be like normal children. So, they tied Slime up and asked him to cooperate with them to perform a magic trick, making dozens of firecrackers disappear. Meanwhile, Wizard Fu was explaining magic to his teammates. He used incantations to create fire and performed hand seals to create fire shields. In this world, magic was closely tied to dragons and the blood in their bodies. Therefore, the teleportation formation Fu created was also based on that image. But he and the wizard group were struggling because they lacked magic power to perform it. Even killing all the dragons outside for blood would be useless, as the formation only accepted humans as conduits. If changed, the dragons would come to attack. The situation worsened as many members in Fu's group, having stayed up many nights, had fallen into a state of mental confusion from studying too much. Time was running out. If they didn't succeed soon, he would be executed by Lise before the dragons arrived. While a subordinate asked if they could escape together, Fu just said to forget it. But Crimson had heard everything, and she decided to help the wizard group. Elsewhere, the past of two superior dragon warriors was gradually revealed. They had once been loyal soldiers, whose master was killed by Wing King Ultimacia. Despite their deep hatred, when transformed into dragons, they had erased all hatred, swearing loyalty to the new Wing King. The strategist of the team stood up to command everyone, dividing the mission into two directions, destroying the kingdom and eliminating Ragna. When Kamui asked to confront Ragna, the commander refused because he had once attacked Ultimacia. Now Kamui couldn't leave her side for a moment, because if the Wing King died, all would perish together. Kamui angrily argued back, even mentioning bedroom matters, making Ultimacia blush speechless. During this, one member suggested they didn't need to search for Ragna, as he would certainly come to Ultimacia for revenge. The commander agreed, deciding to focus on destroying the kingdom as quickly as possible. They discussed summoning all dragons inside and outside the country to wipe out humans. One was assigned to handle the Silver Energy Princess, while the other would take care of the rest. Kamui reminded his comrades to be careful, as Death Reaper Ragna might be with the Silver Armor Brigade. He just sneered, saying if that were true, he would come personally. Before ending the meeting, he realized his comrade had something more to say. He reminded everyone to be careful, not to die in vain. They were the Wing King's limbs, and if limbs were easily cut off, the Blood Clan would perish. Half the force had already been lost, so those who survived carried a heavy burden. If they couldn't win, they should kneel and negotiate, as long as they lived to fight another day. At this time, Princess Lise had erected countless silver swords, arranging them into a solid barrier surrounding the battlefield to block the dragon's advance. Isak couldn't hide his concern. He turned to ask the princess about what Crimson had said she did in the capital. Lise replied that he should only believe in things truly necessary, while information without benefit should be ignored. However, there was one thing Isak couldn't stop thinking about: the assertion that superior dragons were originally human. This thought raised doubts in his mind, because if that were true, then the war between humans and dragons was not exactly as they had believed. Nevertheless, Lise held firm to her beliefs. She believed that even if superior dragons were once human, that couldn't change the fact that they were enemies, and enemies must be eliminated. For her, mercy at this moment was a crime. At the same time, in the cell, Crimson began explaining to Ragna why she wouldn't let him use the Silver Energy combat technique. She revealed that among the superior dragons, there was a special individual named Thunder Claw Dragon Kamui, who had surpassed the limits of power, an almost invincible entity. Now, he was beside Ultimacia to protect her. But as soon as he heard news of Ragna's appearance, he would certainly come immediately. Then, the battle would no longer be a confrontation, but would become a real massacre, and the Silver Armor Brigade would hardly survive. Crimson anticipated that if things went badly, she would have to find a way to retreat with Ragna, as she understood well that no one could resist the power of the Thunder Claw Dragon. Meanwhile, Isak was still searching for Crimson, knowing she had left her confinement without permission. Passing through the camp, he encountered Fu staggering like a lost soul. Suddenly, Fu grabbed Isak's shoulders, demanding to know Crimson's origins, because thanks to her, his group's magic formation had now reached a level of perfection many times greater. For Fu, this was a humiliation, as after years of research, his work had been perfected by someone else in the blink of an eye. He bitterly admitted that Crimson was exactly like the type of top student who could understand all formulas with just a glance, while he had to struggle endlessly and still couldn't compare. Fu's bitter tears rolled down, making Isak unsure whether to feel sad or laugh. During this time, after playing several bizarre games, the twin sisters returned Slime to Ragna. He now looked miserable and desperate, his pride trampled mercilessly. Before Ragna could speak, Crimson appeared, saying that if he wanted to channel silver energy into weapons, he must concentrate deeply, letting the energy blend with the object, making opponents unable to sense that energy source. When Ragna asked her to help Slime regain his spirit, Crimson only responded with action. She lifted Slime up and threw him hard to the ground. Immediately after that throw, Slime bounced up happily as if nothing had ever happened. Crimson quickly ordered Slime to monitor Ragna, not to leave his side for a moment. She was about to turn away when she encountered second Princess Lise. Immediately, Crimson obediently lay down on the bed, while Lise approached to speak privately with Ragna. She led him down to a quiet basement, where light shone through cracks in the stone wall, reflecting on the gleaming swords. Nasa secretly followed behind, fearing the princess might lose her composure because of her crush. Lise told Ragna about her concerns. She feared the people and the brigade would have nowhere to live if they left the kingdom. So she had to agree to join the solar god religion in exchange for their protection. Nevertheless, Lise worried that she wouldn't survive the upcoming battle, and therefore, she wanted Ragna to join the religion in her place, continuing the mission to protect everyone. After hearing this, Ragna just smiled and refused, understanding that he didn't belong to any religion, and didn't need the title of dragon-slaying priest to continue fighting. When Lise said she had a premonition she would die in this battle, Ragna was momentarily stunned. In that moment, Lise suddenly summoned 3 silver swords, pointing their tips directly at Ragna. She reminded him that previously he had said he wanted to be used by her. So now he must do exactly as he said, becoming her loyal subordinate in this campaign and obeying all orders. Faced with the princess's burning spirit, Ragna inadvertently remembered his own future, where he always fought frantically because he knew he couldn't die. Meanwhile, Lise, though knowing death awaited ahead, still put others' lives above her own. That strong will moved him, and Ragna decided to channel all his remaining silver energy into Lise's 3 silver swords, promising that she could confidently join the solar god religion, as he would protect her with all his strength. Ragna's powerful declaration left Lise almost speechless. She rushed outside with bright eyes. The second princess felt inferior, but in her heart arose a fierce desire to become even stronger to deserve fighting alongside them. At that same moment, the capital had become hell. Lower-ranked dragons were released, massacring indiscriminately. People fled in chaos amid screams, while manipulated soldiers turned their guns on each other. Blood spread across the streets, and all the life energy of those who fell was absorbed by Borgias. He sacrificed all his remaining lifespan to resurrect one last time, fighting for the greater cause and passing on faith. Ultimacia painfully witnessed everything, but Kamui understood that Borgias would rather die in battle than live a miserable existence worse than death. As the sun was about to set, signaling the final battle, the enemy appeared and ordered the living forest to break through Lise's barrier. In the sky, Taza in the form of a giant dragon prepared to dive down, intending to blow everything into a plane. But at that moment, a strong force unexpectedly knocked him away. She was astonished, as the one who had just appeared was none other than Ragna, holding 2 swords emitting silver light. Both superior dragons couldn't believe it, as the silver energy wasn't emanating from Ragna's body, but from the swords themselves. Raksha immediately warned Tara to be extremely careful. If it truly was the Grim Reaper appearing, they must immediately summon Kamui. Tara roared, asking the name of her opponent, but Ragna didn't say a word. He just gripped his dual swords tightly and charged forward, and thus the destined battle between the 2 sides officially began. Isak tightened his grip on the sword, trying to reassure himself that everything had been thoroughly prepared. But he never expected that the battle would begin with a surprise attack from a mob of manipulated civilians. These innocent people, with faces marked by pitch-black blood vessels, screamed madly and charged straight toward the brigade, creating unprecedented chaos. Soldiers, terrified, could only defend desperately, none daring to strike their fellow humans. Isak intended to take the initiative to break this passive situation. But right before him appeared a little girl, causing his blade to halt mid-air. Fortunately, Princess Lise appeared just in time. With determined eyes, she didn't hesitate to eliminate all the civilians who had been infected by Zora's poison gas. Her voice, cold but resolute, ordered everyone to destroy anyone not under protection, emphasizing that if they didn't act, they themselves would be the ones to fall. Lise quickly shifted the entire army from defensive to offensive, leading the troops herself toward the forest where Zora was hiding. From afar, Zora observed the battle through artificial eyes, feeling extremely excited by Lise's spirit. However, she also knew that all of the princess's actions were within her calculations. In the Blood Clan ranks, the time it took to achieve the title of saint was the measure of strength. Tara was the only one who took 20 years to reach that level. She didn't have magical talent, only possessing a robust body trained since her human days. But he was still strong enough to crush opponents with pure physical strength without needing any sophisticated magic. The duel between Ragna and Tara erupted violently. Although Ragna demonstrated his exquisite skills, his current strength was still insufficient to cut through his opponent's solid body. Tara, though arrogant, still showed respect for Ragna's martial arts, but Ragna completely ignored this fake respect. Recalling his proud declaration to Princess Lise, Ragnar removed his gloves, channeling all his silver energy into the sword, determined to deliver a finishing blow in just one strike. Tara immediately concentrated all his magic power into his fist, ready to receive that lethal slash. The two forces collided with a resounding explosion. On one side was Ragna's dragon-slaying flash, on the other was Tara's impact cannon. Meanwhile, Princess Lise had ordered the mobile archer team to fly high, having the twins with dragon eyes observe the entire battlefield. With the ability to see through everything and transmit resonant sounds, they quickly reported the enemy's positions, numbers, and movement directions. Despite Zora's efforts to enhance the controlled civilians with magic poison, they were all swept away in a short time. Seeing the scene of soldiers having to kill their own kind, Lise boldly told them to direct all their anger toward the dragons who caused this tragedy. Zora, though entertained by the battle's brutality, couldn't help but worry when witnessing the massive explosion from Tara's direction. She feared something bad had happened. Tara, covered in blood, struggled to get up and announced that he had won but had also become disabled. The fact that a human could seriously wound him astonished Zora. She carefully asked if Ragna's body emitted silver energy to determine if he was the Death Reaper who had once attacked her mistress. When Tara was about to finish Ragna with a final kick, he managed to dodge in the nick of time, escaping the fatal blow. Though severely injured, Ragna still struggled to stand up, wanting to continue fighting, but Tara said the battle between them was over, as Ragna was not the one he needed to eliminate. He left Ragna to be handled by lower-ranked dragons, believing he would soon be torn apart. Ragna fought while shouting challenges to Tara, but he just coldly turned away, admitting that if Ragna's sword had withstood that power, the winner would have been him. The dragons swarmed like ants, causing Ragna to become exhausted, cough blood, and collapse. At that moment, swordsman Shin appeared, rescuing him and eliminating all the dragons with his silver energy. He lifted Ragna up, angrily asking why he had thrown himself into such a deadly situation. Shortly after, Mr. Graham also arrived, informing them that all other gates had been destroyed, leaving only one path for Isak to intercept the dragons. But Ragna shouted, demanding they return to protect the princess, insisting he would handle the rest. Shin couldn't stand Ragna's stubbornness and decided to challenge him for the 7th time. Previously, when Princess Lise had decided to withdraw troops to evacuate civilians, Shin had opposed it, believing he followed her to kill dragons, not to flee. Lise had struck him in the face then, saying if they couldn't defeat superior dragons, everything would be meaningless. The important thing was to survive to fight another day. Afterward, she declared she would join the Solar Holy Society and train the brigade to be strong enough to destroy the Wing King. Now, after 6 failures, Shin finally defeated Ragna. Not because Ragna had weakened, but because Shin had matured and become much stronger than before. He asserted that this wasn't just Ragna's fight, but a life or death battle for the entire brigade. Elsewhere, Mr. Graham and Little Slime had cleared out the lower-ranked dragons, both full of determination. Slime, feeling disappointed in Ragna, climbed onto Shin's head and led the way to the explosive mass dragon's position. Mr. Graham immediately followed, ignoring Ragna lying there. Meanwhile, Lise created a defensive formation with numerous silver energy swords, turning Zora's entire forest into a fortified base. The twin sisters and Chris coordinated to push back enemy forces, while the Wizard Society rejoiced as magic flowed strongly into the teleportation spell upgraded by Crimson. However, Zora, with cold eyes, quickly realized the true plot. Princess Lise was killing dragons to absorb magic from their corpses, providing energy for the teleportation formation. This discovery didn't anger her, but rather excited her, making her even more eager to witness the performance of the opponent she had been waiting for all this time.